Hi, this is Dr. Mark Sell, and I'm happy to be here to welcome you to the podcast Therapy for the Heart. I'm a psychotherapist in private practice in New York City, and I work with couples, individuals. I have group therapy, and I do a private psychotherapy training group every other Tuesday in New York City. So it's nice to be here. I want to set the stage for this podcast by giving you two quotes that have been important to me throughout my training. The first is from a British psychoanalyst, D.W. Winnicott, and the quote is, "It is a joy to be hidden and a disaster not to be found." So this quote, in its all subtlety and brilliance, talks about the basic wishes and needs of people in general, and specifically in psychotherapy as it's applied to the work in psychotherapy. So the wish to be hidden is very important, particularly because, as we've seen in many of the psychotherapy videos, people have been criticized, humiliated, emotionally and psychologically and physically abused in their life. So they want to be able to hide. And also they want to be able to be, people want to be discovered, but in their own time. Its authenticity is being discovered, I think, if you think about being known by another. To me, that's a good definition of intimacy, but it has to be, in therapy it's very important to not to know somebody too quick, too soon, because they need to be able to hide, and when they're ready, they'll be able to come forth if you provide the right environment and atmosphere. For instance, some people, and it's probably familiar to you, fear people getting to know them because they feel they're not going to be liked. So understanding these dynamics is vital for good practice, psychotherapy practice, and for the foundations of any healthy relationship and healthy communication. The second quote is from The Little Prince by Antoine de Exupéry. The Little Prince meets many people in his travels, and he's disappointed with many of them. They're obnoxious, full of themselves. They don't seem very real. But then he meets a rose, and he really gets to like this rose, and he tends to her, cares for her. But suddenly he looks across the field, and he's very disappointed because there's hundreds of roses, and he says, well, how can my rose be special to me if there's so many? So he later learns that his rose was very special to him because he got to know her, and he cared for her and tended her. So that was a very important lesson. Speaks to the essence of human experience through a child's eyes, which is why I love the book. And it's 80 million copies were sold and published in 190 languages. So a quick summary. Part of that quick summary was the meeting of the little rose. Another very important meeting between the prince was with the fox. So the prince meets a fox, and the fox asks him to tame him. Now, what is taming? Taming is establishing ties. So the fox says it takes time to do this. So he suggests meeting at the same time, in the same place, frequently. And as they do that, they'll get closer, physically closer. Now, that's the essence of the setting of the therapy, right? You meet frequently, and get to know each other over time, and it's the consistency and the reliability that makes for therapy being relied upon, reliable. Trust develops. So we'll talk more about that significance for therapy in the first talk that we have. These talks are not tailored to a specific person. They're like a roadmap for people with a variety of interests in their life and in the subject of human relationships and healthy communication. Healthy communication is a central theme of these podcasts in addition to what makes for a good psychotherapy session. Whether it's between patient and therapist, parent and child, between couples, or an employee and employer. Whether you are a patient, therapist, considering therapy for the first time, I hope these talks provide a stimulus to you for further thought. Now that I'm giving you a quick overview of what this podcast will cover, I'd like to include a brief background on myself. I went to Siena College and studied, my major was in sociology, studying human relationships, the causes and consequences of human behavior. So Dr. Egon Blogger was a very influential teacher there, and he liked to influence and help people go to social work school after graduating. So I went to NYU, and while I was with at Siena, I had an internship with adjudicated delinquent and neglected girls, and this was so fulfilling and so great for me because I was very young, and it was a benign, even though they were delinquent girls, it was a benign atmosphere, and they were wonderful. And what I learned at that very important lesson for psychotherapy and for human relations is that people need, they're surprised by being listened to. The girls were didn't expect it, that I was interested in their story. So that internship was very important to me. So I went to social work school, and it was a good fit because in addition to learning about working with individuals, social work was very concerned about working with groups and communities and the issues with communities and culture. So my internship the first one was at the Lower East Side Service Center down the Lower East Side, and I learned a lot about addiction. That was very helpful because addiction is tough to work with. It's people have a very hard time getting over their addictions. So, and I think it was there, or maybe later, I learned much more about harm reduction treatment too. That was very important. So then I went to Rikers Island. And I had three memorable experiences. I worked in an adolescent division for part-time there, and then the other part of the time I worked in the adult division. But in the adolescent division, I worked with a group of 5 percenters. At that time, I erroneously thought that they were an offshoot of the Black Panthers. And actually, that helped me at the time because I had an empathy and an understanding of the point of view of the Black Panthers. I remember when I was in training in psychotherapy, I asked my teacher, "What do you think of the Black Panthers?" I was just trying to find out, where she was, not expecting. I didn't know what I expect. She said, "Well, I understand their point of view," and that's how I felt about it, and that helped me. I understood their reason for being, and I understood how much support they gave to the community, which was often being fired on and, prejudiced against African Americans. So they gave people a lot of good reason to feel good about themselves and to boost their identity. I brought Soul and Ice into the prison. That's a book by Eldridge Cleaver. It was one of my favorite books. So my understanding of the people that I was familiar with, the Black Panthers, helped me with this group because I wasn't frightened of them. I listened to them. I was interested in their story. I respected them. I didn't judge them. So I had a very beneficial experience with that group, which one would not expect being a young person like I was, just beginning learning. They were very good with me, and I was good with them. There was some frustrations. The Soul on Ice book, I brought it into prison, and That was memorable too, because whoever I gave it to, 2 years later it came back to me, and it was a hardcover book, and the edges were worn thin, and just shows the thirst that they had for that kind of literature which was not allowed in the prison. I got it back, and I was very happy that it was so well read. But I mean, it's ironic because that book is such an affirmation of the people in prison that needed to read that. It empowers them to read something like that to affirm their identity. So there's another thing that happened in the prison that was memorable to me was we were running rampant trying to, social services trying to fulfill people's needs over and over and over again. Not enough supplies, this and that, this and that. So one time the group was in the adult division. I was there standing around, and I said, gee, you have this happens all the time. Did you ever think of going on strike? So they did. They went on strike, and that was a good idea because they really controlled the prison. Everything from secretarial services to food to the laundry, they ran the prison. So they went on strike, and it was nonviolent, and the administration met their needs, and it was wonderful. It was good for me. It was a win-win. It was good for me for my own, not having to do that kind of work over and over and over again. It was for the self-efficacy of the prisoners to feel powerful. And so it was a win-win situation. It was nonviolent, no problem. There wasn't any terrible uproar in the prison because they went on strike. So another memorable moment was an inmate who I was working with for about a year. He was then released. And 2 years later, he gave me a call, and he said, Mr. Sell, I want to record your voice now while you talk to me over the phone because I want to play it back to me when I'm lonely. And that really gave me an idea of the impact that I could make on people. I didn't believe that before. I didn't have that kind of substantial evidence, so that was very memorable. And so he internalized me and then had me there to talk to him. We could play the recording anytime. Very clever. He was a very nice kid, too. After my internships, I spent a lot of time learning psychotherapy and psychoanalysis. I really wanted to made a commitment to learn. So I studied long and hard, and I received 2 certificates, and both from institutes that were certified by the New York State Department of Education. After that, I applied to NYU, clinical program in social work, PhD program. And prior to that, I was very fortunate to have a long-term interest in the patient-therapist relationship. Very interested in how the therapist contributes to the outcome, and that eventually culminated in the publication of a paper, Stalemates in Therapy and the Notion of Gratification. It was a peer-reviewed journal. It was a very nice feeling to have that done. So for my dissertation, I did a quantitative study, and it was on erotic countertransference. That's the feelings of the therapist. Erotic countertransference, the incidence of that in clinical social work practice. And I sent out questionnaires, had to wait to get them back. It was a real study. So I was very happy I did it. I did the tough one for me, and I wanted to challenge myself. So I got the responses. I passed with flying colors, and my hypothesis was proved. One of them, there's many, but one of them was that in graduate school social work there was a lack of training in that area of erotic countertransference. That's to be fair to social work school. That was not just for social work school. It was also true of psychology across the board. They weren't getting training. So that, pun intended, that was percolating in mind to do that study, because I was always wondered about women who were blamed, in my opinion, because of the literature, for difficult therapy treatments because of their erotic transferences, but not too many mentions of the therapist and what their contribution was. So that's why I wanted to do that study. So for all those reasons, that educational experience was one of my best. So that just concludes this introduction. In the next talk, every Tuesday, we'll dive into what makes for a good psychotherapy session. And that talk is going to cover what makes it difficult for people to come to therapy in the first place, how they may defeat their good intentions, how it's different to talk to a therapist rather than friends and family, and also specific examples of how a therapist helps. Before concluding, I want to mention my YouTube videos. They were started around 2011, and they have been on the first page of Google or second page, mostly the first page, since that time. I did a lot of work to do those videos and put a lot of time in, and they've been described as down-to-earth and authentic, and I want this podcast to be similar to that, and I hope you can help me do that. So it's going to be down to earth and authentic as I can make it, and it's going to be something that people can take with them rather than having to watch it on a PC. Sometimes people don't have them or they can't afford them, but this, you can take this podcast with you driving or wherever. So it's going to be a companion to the YouTube. They're both Therapy for the Heart. On YouTube, it's YouTube / Therapy for the Heart. No spaces. Or you can just put Mark Sell on YouTube and you'll find all the videos. So thanks for listening to this podcast. I appreciate your being here. And underneath the talk, you'll see a little black heart. Right underneath the play button, you'll see a little black heart. And I hope you can like the talk. And also up to the right, there's a yellow box, follow box. I hope you can click that. And I would be very grateful if you could continue to follow me. So with that, I'm going to conclude this talk. The introduction, and I hope to see you. Hope you can listen in next Tuesday. This is Mark Sell signing off for Podcast Therapy for the Heart. You can contact me at 212-228-3467. Text me at 917-991-9113, or email me at marksell@gmail.com, or visit my website, marksehl.com. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye for now.